I've eaten a lot of raccoon. Yes. The answer is yes. And I've eaten it. I've eaten it hunting. I've actually had it served by my mom at the table away from hunting. And I have eaten raccoon. And yes, it's not uncommon at all. I'll tell you something that is one of my favorites is squirrel. And it's wonderful, and my mother could do a great job of it. And we all had our favorite pieces, and my dad and sister, I have one sibling, a sister, and they would fight over, not fight, but my mom and I, they were just, my sister and I as far as siblings, my mom and I wouldn't even ask for the brain in a squirrel.
Oh, man.
And delicious, seriously.
My dad loves cow
my
brain.
sister always got it, or my dad.
The fight over the brain. Jerry.
Well, good morning, good people. Mark Holmes here, of course, with my buddy Cowboy Joe Boo. What's up, Joe Boo? As well as the Funky Chicken. And as always, I want to say thank you all for watching, commenting, subscribing, and being part of the Joe Boo Sports Report. Without you guys, as well as you ladies, you know that this literally does not work. Man, it is cray-cray. Got in here late last night, got our friend Michelle, who lives in Australia. Thank God she did not bring any Vegemite. You know, for those who are old like me and you've heard the song Men of Work and it talks about a Vegemite sandwich, it is literally the shit that they scrape out of the bottom of the barrel. Seriously, it's the yeast that they scrape out of the bottom of the barrel to make Vegemite, and it literally tastes like fly pate. The nastiest shit that I've ever eaten. Well, no, actually, it's right there with a Pat's and Geno's cheesesteak. Both are nasty, and definitely don't want to do any of that. But it's actually windy and cold here, and there's a place called Humpback Rocks that's about 15 minutes up the mountain from here. That is about an 800-foot elevation, 2-mile hike to get to the top of it, and the views from it are unbelievable. Unbelievable. Now, Michelle, when we were at the Super Bowl in Arizona, wanted to go up Camelback Mountain. And I did that. I went to the top. It's 1,900 foot lift. And it was probably the hardest hike I've ever done. It was worse than Diamond Head and everything else. So she was like, can we go climb that today? And I'm like, the high temperature is supposed to be like 38. And we've got like 20-mile-an-hour wind gust. And you want to go hike the top of that? You trying to kill me? I think she's trying to kill me. So we'll see if we actually do that. I'm gonna need hat, gloves, and everything. I'm gonna need some of the little packets for heaters to go ahead and go up there. But we may go ahead and try and do that, and I'll see if I can. If I do, and I get up top there, I'll live stream or take a video for you guys to see it. But be that as it may, we're sitting here, and it is the 17th of February. I don't know if you guys realize this, but there's only 28 days to this month. That means there's 11 days. 11 days left in this month. And then 10 days after that, free agency starts. We've got next week the combine starting. So we need to figure out who of the old we want to keep and who of the new we want to get. And see, here's the thing I'm going to say. We all focus in on the fact that the Cowboys didn't do anything in free agency to help themselves. And, you know, other than we brought back Zeke and we ended up signing Eric Kendricks. Eric Kendricks was actually good. He actually played very, very well for us. A great value add, as Steve, and you know, I love them value adds that we put on the team. You know, we get a guy who takes a veteran minimum. You know, he's only about like $1.5 million, but because they are so old in there, you can make the cap hit less than $1 million. And we love to go ahead and populate our roster with guys that are like that, you know, cheap. But the biggest problem wasn't the fact that we didn't sign free agents from outside the building. The bigger problem was we didn't sign the free agents from within. We always get told from Stephen Jones that, we believe in our own guys. Our homegrown talent, we just love those guys. And, we'd rather, we know what to expect with our guys. Well, here was the problem with the whole thing was, yes, it would have helped us to get some outside free agents. But you have to look at it from the standpoint of, had we kept some of our guys that we had let go that were very, very productive elsewhere, we might not have been in such a bad shape. You think about had they kept Tony Pollard, for example. Now we're playing hypotheticals here because the reality is you can't keep everybody. It'd be great if you could say, we're going to keep all these guys and we're going to sign all these other guys and we're just going to build a super team. When you don't know how to manage the cap and you wait to do contracts, you do not have money to work with. If you look at over the cap right now, you look at the Cowboys, basically we're about at zero. We're like $1.5 million below. But technically, the $19 million rollover hasn't been accounted for yet. The cap going up, how much it's going to go, hasn't been accounted for. So for the first time, the Cowboys are actually in a better cap position than they have been in the past, because typically at this time we're 25, 30, $35 million below the cap, in which case we have to either restructure or cut some guys just to get to zero. So when we talk about Dak Prescott being an $89 million hit, when we talk about Terrence Steele being an $18 million hit, when we talk about CeeDee Lamb being a $38 million hit or whatever it is, when we talk about the Micah Parsons being a $24 million hit, those things are already baked in to where we are right now. And we have triggers that we can use for, if we cut Terrence Steele and make him a June 1st cut, we can get $13 million. If we end up restructuring Dak and CD, we can get about another $50 million right there. There's if we get Micah Parsons done, you probably get about a $13 million right there. So there's things that we can do to get more money to re-sign our own or to get others from outside. But think about this for a second, because, I remember going through and saying, I would like to re-sign Stephon Gilmore as an insurance policy to Trayvon Diggs, because we've had issues with guys coming back from ACLs. We know Michael Gallup wasn't anywhere near what he was, before the ACL, and never got back 2 years later. Terrence Steele coming back from the ACL, still is kind of getting back his leg underneath of him. And I said keeping Stephon Gilmore would have made a difference because you didn't have Deron Bland until like week 12. That would have been a guy who would have been a veteran that you could have kept in there to play, until Bland was ready, with experience that was still a good player. You think about Dorrance Armstrong, Dante Fowler, and Hankins. Are they, is Hankins is, he's probably about the same as Mozzie right now. But if you'd had Mozzie and him to be able to spell each other, or you using a combination to have a heavier package, you probably would have been a better defense to go with Osa and Digazua. Probably if you had Dante Fowler and Dorrance Armstrong, and Dante Fowler literally being on a team that had some other playmakers, had 10 sacks. Dorrance Armstrong made a key sack in the playoffs and things. You have to look at it and say, we would have been a better defense, maybe at stopping the run, and maybe forcing a few punts early on in the season, had we kept those guys. Right? So we ended up leaving. And again, if you'd had Tony Pollard coming out the box, as opposed to, we don't know which way we're going to go. We're going to try Rico. We're going to try Zeke. We're going to try, Deuce Vaughn. We're going to try Dalvin Cook. You would have at least known, we know that Tony Pollard's our lead guy. We're going to mix in and find out who's going to be the number two. You would have been in a better situation, right? So we let go all of those guys without replacing any of them. 9 starters. And see, that's the problem. It's not that the Cowboys are a bad team. Once we let go of those players, and then we had expectations of Mozzie turning into Aaron Donald, when we had the thoughts that Overshone was going to end up being like Bobby Wagner for the whole season, when we thought that we'd have Diggs back healthy along with Deron Bland, we had to have everything work out perfect. That Marshawn Nealon was going to come out the box and be DeMarcus Lawrence. Oh, and DeMarcus Lawrence got injured too. Okay. That we thought that Sam Williams was going to take up some of the slack and be a really good Robin to Batman. We get all these injuries out the bat. And having let go so much players that were already starters, all the guys that you had that you looked at as players that were going to step up didn't. Diggs was never right all season. Never right. Overshone had flashes and looked really good, but was gone. Mozzie played well, but he still has a ways to go, and he needed another guy to be able to spell him. Marshawn Nealon, in and out the lineup, injuries, rookie. Sam Williams, tore ACL in camp, never showed up. Diggs, we already talked about Diggs. Deron Bland, mystery injury. So we can't make that mistake that we say with all the free agents that we have, and we do have a lot. Our mentality has to be, if we let go of Chuma Igoda, we got to bring in somebody who's better, or at least as good. At least as good. And we did not do that. Ideally, you want to bring in somebody better. Now, the caveat here, because, again, we have 3 weeks to 3 weeks. 3 weeks, exactly. 3 weeks to figure out who we want to keep and who we want to go after. Because our guys are always popular on other teams. They're always popular on their teams. We got a lot of work to do in the meantime. There's the biggest question mark, which could change everything, would be Zach Martin. If Zach Martin comes back and he's Zach Martin of old, that changes everything on the offensive line. Zach Martin enables you to have multiple different setups on the offensive line. If Zach Martin comes back, you could go ahead and save yourself some money by letting go possibly Terrence Steele. But I'm not ready to give up on Terrence Steele myself, because if the team is going to be more run-centric, that will make Terrence Steele a better player, because he's a better run blocker than he is a pass blocker. And I've done a couple videos on it, having a more balanced offense means the defender doesn't know if I'm rushing the quarterback or stopping the run, which gives the advantage back to the offensive lineman, as opposed to when you're passing the ball 60% of the time, or you're already way down and we know you're going to pass. I've already got in my mind the move I'm setting you up with when I get to the line of scrimmage, and I'm firing out like a cannonball. So, Terrence Steele, maybe if you've got Zach Martin, you can take Guyton and you can move him over to the right, and we'll go have mano versus Imano, figure out who's going to be our right tackle. And maybe Tyler Guyton becomes your swing tackle. You could take Tyler Smith and move him out to tackle, and you could have Asim Richards as your guard. Or you could move Cooper Beebe back to guard and have Brock Hoffman your center. And then you actually have some depth in there, because you've got Brock Hoffman, you got Asim Richards, you got Tyler Guyton, who is a swing tackle, and maybe you can make it through without having to bring in major talent. If you don't have Zach Martin, then that kind of changes things all the way around, because then you start having to look and say, Brock Hoffman's going to have to be my guard. Now, was Brock Hoffman just good because he only played a few games there? And as a full season that he gets exposed, I don't know. maybe Tyler Guyton gets better and he can be the left tackle. With the off-season of seasoning, working with the offensive line whisperer. But Zach Martin is definitely a linchpin and a free agent that, if he's healthy, you've got to figure out a way to keep him. And I'd hate to see Zach Martin finish his career someplace else for a year or two. I just would hate to see that. I had wished that Tyron Smith had just retired instead of going to the Jets. That was just hard to watch. Osa and Digizua, that's the big one that you can't live without, I don't think. Unless you make a trade for Myles Garrett. If you go out and get Myles Garrett, then you are making yourself instantly better and you're replacing your production on the edge. And if you don't re-sign Osa, then you can take that money and that can go towards helping to take care of Myles Garrett. So you have to understand, in a perfect world, you'd want to have Osa and Myles Garrett. But unless the Cowboys say, we're actually going to push all our chips in, and where are my chips? That we're going to push all of our chips in and really restructure and say, we're going to go ahead and get all this talent right now, then you can't do all these things. And that's the bottom line is, what will the Cowboys do? When I look at it and say, the ones that I don't want to live without free agency is Jordan Lewis. We've tried to get rid of Jordan Lewis, it seems like, for every year that he's been here. But Jordan Lewis ends up being a great slot corner and has played well for us. You got to try and keep him. You got to try and keep Osa and Digizua because finding guys that can do what he does, the amount of pressures that he puts in there, they're few and far between, and you're not getting a guy in the draft that's coming out the box to do that. Rico, I think you need to get Rico and pair him up with somebody else out there. That those really are the top four that I say that you have to hold on to, along with Zach Martin. D-Law, we had a disagreement between me and Walker Wade because he's like, well, D-Law is a great run stopper, and this. I hear what you're saying, but you have to look at it from the standpoint of D-Law has had problems with that foot for so long. And literally, we went through another season without him. And at this point, you have to say, this may be an opportunity for me to cut my losses and take that money and those resources and put elsewhere. Because having him sign for another year and he can't play, we're screwed. So that's my thoughts there. And so as we get ready to get out of here, and of course we'll see if I'm going to die on top of a mountain, get literally freeze to death. It might be still snow on top of that thing as the elevation. It's at 3,000. It's over 3,000 foot, and here in the mountains, it might be cold as shit up on there. It might still have snow on. Rich Eisen, I love Rich Eisen. Rich Eisen is the real deal. Going through, and we're talking about how close are the Cowboys to a Super Bowl. I'm going to say they're not far from being a good team. Contrary to what people say that, we're going to tank for next year. If you got Dak Prescott back, we got a killer schedule. You're still going to be better than what you were this year. You just will be. With a couple of moves and a couple of these young guys staying healthy, and taking the second year and third year jump, you're going to be a better team. If you are less injured than you were last year, you will be a better team. Is that good enough to be a Super Bowl team? No. But you'll be a better team. Now the question will be is, what do the Cowboys do to be a great team and a Super Bowl contender? That's the real question.
Quarterback, Dallas Cowboys, made a public appearance. Does appear to be at a charity event because, as you know, this is a Walter Payton Man of the Year award winner. He is a very charitable-minded guy, which is part of the reason why you should, not think twice about signing the guy at a quarterback contract. That maybe could be a little bit more favorable terms to you, but I digress. He was asked about the Eagles winning the Super Bowl. Now, TJ, if you were asked this question,
Yeah.
I'm wondering if you would answer it a similar way as Dak Prescott, because there's a lot of chatter about the way Dak answered this question.
I'm not mad at it.
Roll tape.
I mean, I feel like we compete with the Eagles and beat them for the most part when we played them. I don't want to say check the record when they're the guys holding the trophy right now. So credit to them. They've earned it and they deserved it by all means. But, yeah, very close, especially even watch the NFC game, the NFC Championship. And those two teams that we battle against each and every year a couple of times. And as I said, feel confident about we've gotten the better part each and every time. To see them, to see it in such a dominating fashion, credit to them. It's our turn and it's on us.
I don't want to say, when somebody says, I don't want to say, they want to say. It's similar of like, you know, hey, with all due respect, I now have full license to say something completely disrespectful because I've predicated my statement by saying I have nothing but all due respect for these people. I don't want to say, you know, check the record because they're holding the trophy right now. But if you check the record, Dak Prescott's career mark versus the Philadelphia Eagles is 9-4.
Yeah, really good.
So
24 touchdowns,
So
8 picks, 100 passer rating.
again, he
good.
could have just basically said congratulations to them. I like Jalen Hurts. I like these guys. I compete against him quite a bit. You know, of course, it hurt me to be hurt and sit around and, you know, they're rivals, so you never really want to see your rival win it, but congratulations to them.
Murdered had he said that.
And why?
Fans don't want to hear that.
But he's the high road Dak Prescott.
Does take the high
To
road.
say that, you know, again, there's a general sense that he's playing into right now. First of all, with all due respect, no, seriously. No, but first of all, he has every right to speak something into existence and believe it because he's a leader. He is a leader. Everybody
from
is
the top down. Man.
Correct. Everyone is looking to him to see how are we going to react to the Eagles being as dominant as they just were. So, him basically saying we're very close and we're now up is a message to the locker room and himself. You know, now it's time for us. And there is, though, the perception out there that the Cowboys are, with a statement like we're very close after the season we just saw, and also one of the Jones family members, friend of the show, Stephen Jones, air quoting the word drought. When he's just like, a lot of people think that we're in a drought. By the way, 30 years without going to a certain level of the playoffs. You can remove the air quotes. That there's a certain sense of delusion, especially when they hire somebody who's never done it before to replace a head coach who you hired because he has done it before. Mm-hmm. And then went ahead and won 12 games 3 years in a row before everything fell off the wagon this year. And so this plays into the sense that the Cowboys are deluding themselves. But kudos to Dak for saying what he said. If he believes it, then he's going to have to back it up. And what a major verbal check to write, to say that you are very close. Check the record of the team that just won the Super Bowl against me. They're 4-9 against him. And I can't wait to see Dallas versus Philadelphia next year 2 times over. Let's get everyone healthy and let's go.
Wouldn't it be?
If the Cowboys are very close, then the contest should be very close. We shall see. Mike Florio coming up in hour number 3. You know, we're not the type of show here to blast somebody for saying something unless it's completely outlandish or, you know, dangerous to not address the comment. Mm-hmm. Do you think the Cowboys are very close, though?
I mean, basically, just to play devil's advocate, from what he said, yeah, he's got the winning record. Normally, the games against the two, when you're just saying Cowboys versus Eagles, the games are usually always competitive.
They are.
So from that sense,
they weren't
maybe
this
looking
year.
as close. But from 53-man roster to 53-man roster, no. They're not that close.
I don't even think if Dak was healthy.
He has to say that.
Like Dak, of course he does. If Dak was healthy this year, even, I don't think I
think we get
they'd have
one.
been lucky to get a split. Lucky to get a split.
Yeah, because that's just how it usually happens.
Well, the way that the Cowboys were playing this year before Dak got hurt gave you no indication that they were very close to anything. They weren't even close to their opponents in the first half of games at home.
True, but I'm just saying that in that rivalry,
True.
You
Throw records out.
Yeah,
I get
exactly.
it. I understand.
All the cliches you can use.
Dak is 33-8 against the NFC East.
It's crazy
I
because
know.
he sucks, and that's
I know that. I know you're
he's
being
the worst
facetious there.
quarterback in the league. All those things. But you look at
Correct.
the numbers, and it's like, well,
Well,
He's won 13 in a row against the Giants.
And if he thinks that the Eagles got to where they got to go because they weren't around as a fully constituted team this
not
year,
the
then
craziest
next year
thing,
is time
people.
to prove it. When I'm assuming they still have Micah Parsons, you need a dynamic edge rusher, you need a dynamic quarterback, you need a dynamic threat at wide receiver, you need an offensive line, you need a dynamic corner who can shut things down. The Cowboys have a ton of those guys, if healthy. Very close.
I thought you were listing all the things we need.
Well, I mean, actually, you don't, right? Did I name guys like Diggs, Parsons, CeeDee Lamb, Dak? They're going to have to hit the offensive line.
Offensive line, running back. We need a strong number
running
2.
back, dude.
Wide
That's
receiver.
This year.
Rico had 1,000, which I predicted.
This year proved. You want to have Rico Dowdle be your Rico. Listen, Rico Dowdle at running back has an opportunity. We ran for 1,000 yards this year.
But
is he a premier running back?
Adding Ashton Genty in the first round. Now that's the sort of way to get some sizzle back to your state there in Texas, man.
Yeah.
Yes,
for sure.
Jerry doesn't do that.
Well, again, Chris.
Yes, he does. Yes, he does.
We draft
He does that more than
including one year Zeke when everyone's thinking you should do it, and they went ahead and did it. And
he paid dividends.
Right.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel.
There we go. The Cowboys, they do that kind of stuff all the time. As far as adding sizzle, that's CeeDee Lamb, that's Zeke Elliott. They definitely love to add sizzle, and they've been pretty good with it. But, I'll talk about it later, but here's the thing that I look at is this. Am I better off getting a running back who's going to get the ball 20 to 25 times a game? Or am I better off getting a lineman who's going to be every offensive snap? Do I get a bigger bang for the buck because of that offensive lineman as opposed to the running back? And these are the problems, in our mind as, laymen, we all say, oh, well, we need to get this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy, and don't understand the ramifications of what you can afford and the amount of moves that you can make. That's where fantasy football, kind of comes in, where everybody thinks, well, just trade this guy and just get, you're going to trade a guy who hasn't performed and you're going to get 2 guys that are, excellent. Doesn't quite work that way. Doesn't quite work that way. But it is what it is. As always, I appreciate each and every one of you guys, and keep the faith. It's about to get interesting in the next couple of weeks, and we will be here for you guys. Peace out.